Full Circle by Ashok Chattopadhyay. Hornsby 2077. Narrated by David Tredynik. The phone rang. David shuffled across the kitchen, wondering who would be calling on the landline. He picked up the handset, careful not to spill his tea, and answered with his habitual gruffness. "Hello, this is David."
"Dad? It's me. You didn't answer your mobile."
Simon. His son's voice still had that familiar mix of energy and hesitation, the tone of someone still bridging the distance between boy and man. "Hey, son. Everything all right?" There was a pause, a held breath.
Yeah, everything's great. Actually, we have some news."
David sat down at the kitchen table, mug in hand, feeling the cool wood under his palm. He recognized that tone instantly. It was the same one Simon had used when he first told him he had gotten into medicine. The same tone when he called to say he had proposed to Sarah. A mix of pride and uncertainty. David didn't speak. He waited, the way he always had. A silence that invited trust, proven over the years.
"You're going to be a granddad,"
Simon finally said. David blinked. Simple, joyful words. They dropped into his chest like stones into still water. A granddad. He let the word settle. A wave of something warm and unfamiliar crept up behind his ribs.
"Dad? You there?"
"I'm here," he said softly. "A grandfather, huh?" Simon laughed.
"Yeah."
Simon was still on the phone, talking about the due date and all. David leaned back in the chair, staring at the steam rising from his tea. His thoughts drifted before he could stop them. Karen would have been over the moon with this news, he thought. Simon had been born on a rainy Thursday. David remembered the mad rush to the hospital, the way Karen's hand clutched his in pain and resolve. He also remembered the silence right before the first cry, when the world held its breath. When they placed that tiny boy into his arms, David had felt something shift in his soul. Not just love, though that was there, but a kind of awe, the kind that made you feel simultaneously giant and small, and immensely grateful. He'd watched Simon grow into a serious little boy who asked big questions. "Where do stars go in the day? Why can you tickle me, but I can't tickle myself?" And build entire cities out of Lego under the dining table. He remembered how fiercely he wanted to get everything right, how scared he was of failing. David had taught him how to ride a bike, hold a cricket bat, shave, how to say sorry when you were wrong. Yes, typical teenage silences were difficult to accept, but those too passed. When Simon left for university, David had lingered in his empty room, fingers brushing the posters still pinned to the wall. He remembered thinking, that went fast, too fast. And Karen went too, rather too soon. She did get to see Simon graduate. They were so proud to see their little boy walking onto the stage and collect his certificate. Not long after that, she was gone. And now Simon would be a father himself. David smiled at the thought, surprised by the emotion rising in his throat. He had expected to feel old. He didn't. He felt something else entirely. Continuity, perhaps, or legacy. The passing of the torch, not as an ending, but a widening circle. "I'm proud of you," he said finally. "You're going to be a great dad." Simon exhaled. "Thanks. I hope so." There was a long silence, one not meant to be filled with words. David sipped his tea. It had gone lukewarm, but he didn't care. He looked around the kitchen. The same wooden clock ticked above the pantry. The same refrigerator, now covered in photos, grocery lists, and faded magnets. One picture caught his eye. A grainy shot of a young Simon, maybe 4 years old, sitting on David's shoulders at the beach, sand in his curls, pointing towards the horizon and grinning like the world was his. He smiled.
"You'll find it changes you," David said, "being a parent. All the plans go out the window. The sleep disappears. You have no time for yourself, and somehow it's still the best thing you'll ever do."
Simon was quiet. Sarah's voice chimed in the background. "Tell him the other part."
"Oh, right," Simon laughed. "It's a boy."
A grandson. David closed his eyes. He imagined a pair of small feet running through the backyard, giggles in the hallway, the familiar weight of a child falling asleep against his shoulder. Another chance to watch the world through young eyes.
"I've still got your cricket gear," David said suddenly. "It's in the attic. Maybe when he's old enough?"
Simon chuckled. "You kept that thing?"
"I'll need your help, Dad,"
Simon said after a pause. David swallowed the lump in his throat.
"You've got it. Anytime."
That night, David sat in his armchair by the window, a photo album on his lap. He traced the pages slowly. First steps, scraped knees, birthday cakes with lopsided candles, each photo a snapshot of love, struggle, joy. He thought of all the times he'd worried he hadn't done enough, that he hadn't been patient enough, present enough, and yet Simon had turned out steady, kind, caring, and thoughtful. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Now the world would begin again, in tiny socks, lullabies, and quiet midnight rocking. A soul would soon look up and say, "Grandpa." David wasn't afraid of the title. It will be an honor. He looked out at the stars, the same ones that had shone above when he first held his son, the same ones that would one day shine over his grandson. Steady, watching, constant. Outside, the wind stirred the trees gently, whispering promises of all that was yet to come.
The end.